You're watching Face to Face, live from the CSL studio. Your host, Nesta, Cann.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Face to Face. Yours truly, Nesta Cann. And today we have a special guest in the studio who goes by the name of Taylor Fields. What's going on?
How's it going, Nesta?
Everything's all right.
Awesome, man.
What's new? What have you been up to lately?
Just working a lot. Been playing a lot lately. Usually around this time of year, things pick up gig-wise, and moving into the spring, a lot more places are having live music and stuff. So, just kind of been going flat out lately. But it's good to be busy. So.
Yeah. So you played a saxophone, right?
Yep.
Did you go to school to learn how to play the sax, or are you self-taught?
Kind of a combination of both. So I did get a degree in music, but I think I was able to pick up a lot from private lessons, but primarily only with a classical trained person, and I sort of ended up focusing more on improvised music, jazz, and kind of pop music and all that stuff as well.
Nice.
So I definitely did learn a lot, in the process of working with a classical musician, because their technique is just, unreal.
Right.
So definitely, like, my teacher was a great taskmaster in that way, and like kept me focused. But then a lot, really, I think just learning through playing with other musicians, which I think that's important to have that balance,
Right.
between kind of like the academic training, but then actually, collaborating with other people and learning organically and picking things up from people who have been playing for a long time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So what got you into music?
My dad is really into music. He always sang and played guitar growing up. Definitely, that was kind of a big influence. Always playing records around the house and all that. And then my mom, not so much into music, but very like supportive, and she still works at a public library, and so I'd go there with her a lot and get out books, but also they had an extensive music collection, and a lot of it was not pop music. I was looking for that at the time when I was 9 or 10, but they didn't really have it. But they had a lot of jazz and kind of alternative stuff, and a lot of like older stuff like the Beatles and so forth. So
Yeah.
that was kind of like my way of like getting introduced to it. And then both my parents were just really supportive when I got interested in music and kind of pushed me along.
Yeah. You like the Beatles?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm the quintessential obnoxious Beatles fan, but I mean they're the best band ever.
How old are you, by the way?
32.
Okay, so I was gonna say you look younger than 30, so you look good for your age. I was gonna say, like, what do you know about the Beatles? But yeah, you're at a good age. You should know about the Beatles.
Yeah.
So your music that you play is classified underneath what kind of genre?
I'd say kind of I play a broad variety of stuff.
Okay.
I think it's important both from like a professional point of view and just a kind of mental point of view to not focus on just one, or at least have sort of like a willingness to have a broad range of styles that you're influenced by and that you play, because it ultimately like helps you expand what you know and keeps it fun.
Right.
But definitely a lot of jazz music, especially early on, college days and thereafter. I definitely still play jazz. I love it. I love like the very improvised free aspect to it.
Nice.
But these days a lot of pop and funk and stuff like that. Some electronica.
Yeah,
I think that's exciting. It's just those styles are sort of younger and are evolving in a way that's cool, and the saxophone doesn't always fit, but it's a cool challenge to sort of like figure out how to translate it onto an instrument that doesn't necessarily traditionally fit into the mold of like pop music today. So
yeah. Do you play any other instrument besides the saxophone?
I've picked up some keyboard along the way.
Right.
That's something that I sort of maybe 5 or 6 years ago started actually playing some gigs on. Definitely not a particularly accomplished player, but it's a very fun instrument, and I sort of enjoy coming at it with like a very beginner's like mindset.
Yeah.
Because I find that's kind of like freeing creatively a lot of times. So
Right.
so I play some piano. I've started singing more, which is kind of fun too.
Wow.
It's a completely different instrument, and it's just wild because it's completely internal. The way you have to think about it and get better. It's very much you have to visualize it because it's physical, but it's like inside your body. It's not like in your hands.
Yeah.
So that's fun. And then I play a little bit of flute, but it's more of a comedy act when I play flute, but I do have one, and I play that a little bit too.
So your father used to play the guitar, right? Did you ever try to pick up a guitar?
I did, and I didn't. He tried to help me out a bit on it, and I just for whatever reason I didn't take to it. I think. It hurts the fingers at first. Maybe I was just a little bit, thin-skinned, but never got into the guitar.
Never got into the guitar.
No.
Wow.
I could have gotten, so many more numbers in high school and college.
Yeah. What was the first song you learned to play on the sax?
So the first one I can remember, I was in, elementary school band growing up, so I'm sure we did some stuff, but the first one that I remember learning on my own was I think In a Sentimental Mood, which is it's a Duke Ellington tune.
Okay.
I really like ballads, on the saxophone. That was one of the first things that got me into jazz music. Just so many great players that play them so beautifully, and it's also a lot more accessible. If you turn on a jazz record and you're a novice, it can be intimidating sometimes. Mm-hmm. Just the the tempos, the technicality, and so forth. And ballads are just there's real great feeling there that if you kind of feel it, you can translate it, and it's not so much about mastery of the instrument, I would say. Mm-hmm. Where it's a different type of mastery, I suppose, at the highest level, but a better access point to get into it. So yeah, that was one of the first ones I learned.
Interesting. Yeah. Any musicians, famous musicians, had an influence on your career?
I wish.
Or inspired you?
Yeah. Definitely inspired. Coltrane definitely early on. Again, because of his ballads, though, obviously he's known for so many things, and his technique, and being able to play breakneck tempos and all that. But really, his sound definitely appealed to me. As I think it does a lot of saxophone players. Right. But he was definitely a big one, and I think what's really enduring about him too is all the music that he wrote is so good too. It's not purely about his facility on the instrument or something like that. It's really his creativity and how he managed to push things throughout his career. It's really inspiring.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you have any competitions? Have you been in any competitions?
I've never been in competitions.
No?
Not for music, no. I did all county band and stuff a bit in high school. Just not competitive, other than the sense that you have to try out to get in, I suppose. Okay. But not kind of beyond that. No, I haven't done any competitions, but
or any gigs, traveling gigs or anything like that.
Yeah, I've done some traveling. In the U.S. only, but gotten to go some cool places, Florida a bit, and some stuff like that. But mostly in the tri-state area, and Vermont a little bit in that area too.
I always ask every musician this: do you get nervous before a gig? And how do you cope with that?
Yeah. A little bit, for sure. I think it's I feel like I've heard other people say it, but I believe that it's good to be a little bit nervous. You want to be a little bit nervous. That's the excitement, that's the energy, and I think just in general in life, but definitely musical situations. If I've ever gone in feeling too confident, I feel like those are the moments when you're not as alert and maybe something doesn't go as planned,
right?
Or it's more likely to. So a little bit of nerves I think is normal, but less over time, but it's definitely it's always there a bit, and I think it's good for it to be there. You want to be able to relax enough to enjoy it, but you also want to have that kind of drive to keep you focused at the same time.
Mistakes. I know every musician makes mistakes. Sometimes they say the audience doesn't know when you make a mistake. How do you handle your mistakes during a performance?
Well, I think that's just it. I think it's so easy to get in your own head about it, but so often, like you said, it's it might blow right by the audience, or it doesn't necessarily, they don't know the exact intention in your head. Yeah. I think it's something that all musicians have to deal with, and it's not always to just be zen about it. It's not always easy to be zen about it, but I think in the moment you have to be as much as possible, because it's already happened, and if you want to get back on track, you have to just kind of continue forward. And go into it with the mindset that everything isn't going to go entirely perfect in the way that you kind of conceive of it in your head ahead of time. Definitely sometimes listening afterwards, even if you think you did well on something, there's always that critique in the head that, again, I think is difficult, but is just something. It's just part of the process. It's part of getting better. So yeah, I mean, you never want to get down on yourself too much, because that kind of compounds on itself, I think, and then you're more likely to feel that in the future. So
right. How often do you practice?
As often as I can,
Yeah.
usually. I do feel like there have been times where I've been overdoing it, and taking like 3-4 days off actually feels really good and makes me feel more freed up. So I mean, like on a good week, 5 days a week, a couple hours a day. When I was in college, I used to practice, more extensively. I would say, like maybe like 3, 4, 5 hours a day sometimes. But I mean, I think there's a time and a place for that. I don't think at this point I'd benefit from that much, because I would just kind of burn out. So yeah, like a couple hours a day I find is like a good sweet spot between like kind of exhausting myself or exhausting my hunger to play more. So something I've tried to do relatively recently is sort of stop in a good place, or stop when I still feel like I have some energy left, as opposed to feeling like, I have to like, kind of push myself, a little bit too far, and then maybe I'm like a little burnt out or less excited the next time. So I find if I stop a little bit early, then I'm excited to go back to it.
Practice indoor, outdoor, it doesn't really matter?
Indoor mostly. I've done some busking and playing in the subway. But yeah, usually indoors. The saxophone is like, because it's an acoustic instrument, I find like in true outdoor conditions, when there's no reverb around, it sounds kind of like dead to me, at least. Again, it's one of those like, eye of the beholder thing, where like maybe other people don't feel that way, but I feel a little naked if I play like in a truly open environment. So yeah, usually indoors. I'm lucky where I live, I can play, and then I also have a studio space that I share with some people, so
okay,
go there sometimes.
Real quick, best musical memory that you can think of?
Man, there's a lot. I think
that comes to mind.
Yeah. I remember playing in when I lived up in Burlington, Vermont. After I went to college, I was living up there still, and I was playing an afternoon gig with some guys, like a jazz gig at a cafe, and it was very like open, kind of impressionistic sort of music. The band leader, there were like large open sections. So we started playing, and it got really intense, and then it started raining outside, and there was like a thunderstorm that happened.
Right.
So we like played through this and sort of like reacted to the music, with our music, to what was happening outside through the windows. And then the storm cleared out, and the sun started setting, and there were like rays of light coming in through the cafe windows as we continued playing, and we sort of like shifted sections of the song at that point to like a kind of like sweeter, like dreamier, like outro section. So it was it felt like a very spiritual kind of thing. It was very like epic in the moment. Hopefully for the people who are watching this as well, but definitely as musicians to like be reacting to it as a group, which is in itself a fun thing, but then have to like be truly reacting not just to each other, but like to what was happening outside, and it felt very cinematic and cool. So
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it was a one-time encounter, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Are you teaching? Are you having plans to teach any like kids, or anything like that, or people who are trying to get into playing the sax, learn how to play the sax?
Yeah, I would like to at some point.
Yeah.
I've not traditionally done that, but I feel like I'm getting closer to a point where like it would be great to like give back in that way to people, because I think playing an instrument, really developing a greater appreciation for music in general is amazing, but playing an instrument is just such a great thing on a lot of levels. I think I've experienced it, all my friends have who play, and it's just a great outlet in so many ways. So yeah, it's definitely something that's on my horizon at some point. Yeah.
So what are the plans for 2019?
2019.
Where do you plan on going from here?
Yeah, I just want to keep working as much as possible. I love playing saxophone. I have some solo stuff that I've been working on, and it's kind of it's easy to push that stuff up to the side because there's no one pressuring me on it, so to speak. There's no deadlines except what I make. But yeah, I've got some solo stuff that I've written that I'd like to record and get out there. So hopefully. I will make that happen in 2019. Yeah, that's what's going on.
All right, so before we wrap it up, before we hear you play something, let people know how they can get in contact with you. Social media, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, website, telephone number, all that good stuff. Let them know.
Yeah, for sure. So you can check out taylorfieldmusic.com, and then on Instagram, Taylor A. Field on Instagram. So I post on there from time to time.
Okay.
And yeah.
All right, so you ready?
Yeah,
All
for
right,
sure.
let's see what you got.
Cool.